Right now, the San Antonio Spurs are building towards a future title team. I mean, they got Wemby. That helps a lot. He had maybe the best rookie season in NBA history. And they got a couple other young guys, so they got a nice young core going on, and they are building a war chest of draft picks to go along with it. But we need to go back to the last time the Spurs won a title in 2014 and played the greatest team basketball we've ever seen.
Yeah, they're coming off a heartbreaking loss in 2013. Got a chance against the Heat again in 2014. And like you said, I mean, this team, the ball movement, like the unselfishness, give up a good shot for a better shot, play the right way. They deserve more recognition because it's been 10 years and they really don't get the praise they deserve.
Before we start talking about the 2014 San Antonio Spurs, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any new videos. So to tell the story of how dominant the San Antonio Spurs were in 2014, we gotta revisit the 2013 finals, and I'm sorry Spurs fans, we'll get to the good part here soon. But
this is gonna be the worst part of the video.
Yeah, you gotta go through this first.
It's uphill from here.
After 3 games in San Antonio due to the old finals format, the Spurs took a 3-2 lead going to Miami. They just needed 1 win to win their 5th title during the Duncan era, and this game was wrapped up. I mean, they brought out the ropes. They were ready to crown the Spurs champions after LeBron turned the ball over with 29 seconds left. Manu Ginobili gets the ball, he gets fouled. Manu's a good free throw shooter. You expect him to make both, go up 6 and 6 with 29 seconds left. That's basically done. It was already basically done for 29 seconds left. Manu misses the first free throw, he makes the second, so you know, still looking good. LeBron bricks the first 3 he takes, but they get the rebound and he makes the second. So still, you just need to make your free throws. They inbound it to Kawhi, but he also misses a free throw. He makes the second, but that gives the Miami Heat life. They got the ball down 3, and we all know what happens.
We all know what happened. Ray Allen hits the shot from the corner that saves LeBron's career. I mean, to be fair, LeBron did brick the 3 beforehand.
He did.
Bosh gets the rebound. Ray Allen hits the shot. Tim Duncan on the bench. I've heard the justifications from Spurs fans and from Popovich as to why Duncan was not on the floor. I still just disagree with it.
Absolutely.
You need someone out there who's big and can grab rebounds, and Tim Duncan's as good as that as anyone else. So game goes to overtime. The Heat prevail in overtime when Chris Bosh just sends Danny Green's 3-point attempt back at him. The Heat prevail in game 7. Obviously game 7, one of the best games in NBA history. LeBron hits that huge shot late to give the Heat a 4-point lead with 28 seconds left. One of the most devastating ways possible to lose the finals. I mean, what else is up there? Like 2016 maybe? I think 16 may be a little bit worse because you lose twice at home. On the other hand, the trophy was literally like waiting for you around the corner, like literally around the corner in the stadium.
Literally. I mean, 2016 was worse, but this, I don't know, it's tough. This might have hurt even more so because I can't think of another time a team was this close and lost it. I mean, it's rare to even think of another instance in sports. I guess my Seattle Seahawks.
1 yard line.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I can kind of think that compares, but goddamn, this just had to be a stab in the chest. Just so damn brutal.
So leading up to the 2013-14 season, during the offseason, the Spurs basically decided to run it back with the same team. I mean, why wouldn't you? You were literally a couple plays away from winning the title. They re-signed Manu to a 2-year deal. The only real major addition they made to the team was bringing in Marco Bellinelli. Just kind of seems like a whatever signing, but turns out he would be vital to this team. And of course, he's just a random role player, so he plays like he's a semi-all-star for the Spurs.
I mean, the Spurs and random foreign role players, like, name a more iconic duo.
DeJuan Blair. Made him look like a rotation player, then he went to the Mavericks and did all.
Didn't even have ACLs either, and he was balling out. But what was interesting, I was actually watching a documentary about this team that the Spurs put out. The first day of training camp, Popovich had the entire team watch all of Game 6 and all of Game 7, the finals prior. You'd think you'd just want to forget about it. But this was actually so smart how they did it. They broke down like, okay, we could have made plays here. Like, we are the reason we lost this finals. We messed up. And then their kind of like theory, their idea about it was, we're not going to talk about this for the rest of the season. Like, people are going to ask and we're just kind of going to say like, yeah, it happened, but we're focused on next season. And I think that was so smart because, again, getting back to the Seahawks, they never got past that one play. And this really helped them, I think, just kind of get past it. And to start the next season, they balled the hell out. They started 13-1, only lost to the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah!
Back when we were good and we had 2 All-Stars.
Go Blazers! Well, we're so fucking far from that right now.
Yeah. 10 years can do a lot to your franchise.
Yeah, it can. They would cool off a little bit over the next couple of months, but they were still 33-10, second in the West going into their rematch against the Heat in late January. Kind of weird that they didn't play on Christmas. I mean, normally that's the finals rematch, but I mean, I guess in the eyes of the casual viewer, Heat Lakers, I guess, is a bigger draw than the finals rematch, but you know, whatever. They play them in late January. Chance to get some revenge, but the Heat honestly kind of gave them the business. I mean, they won by 10, but I think in the third quarter it was like a 20-point game. To be fair, Kawhi was out, but like, not great.
Yeah, you would have wanted your revenge, but we'll talk about it. It came later because
yeah, it did.
I don't know what, they flipped some sort of crazy switch because in late February to early April, they rattled off a 19-game win streak, didn't lose a single game in the entire month of March, blew out the Heat by 24 points, so, you know, that helps to get the revenge. Also blew out Indiana by 26 at Indiana. That might not sound crazy, but back then Indiana was a very good team, and it's crazy to look back at some of these box scores because you see they blow out a team by almost 30. You think like, oh, someone dropped like 37, someone dropped 40. The most points a player scored for their team the entire season was Tony Parker, who had 37 against the Thunder in late January. As a team combined, they had 7 30-point games. Tony Parker was their leading scorer and he averaged 16.7.
I was gonna say, motherfuckers will score 50 nowadays and lose.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that they were so balanced. I mean, 6 players averaging double figures, and you still got Boris Diaw and Danny Green averaging 9. You got Tiago Splitter averaging 8. People like to look at the Celtics nowadays and be like, oh, they're a deep team. This was a deep team.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more later. We'll get into it, don't worry, but this has got to be the best like team basketball ever. I mean, just watching it, seeing the stats, how balanced it was. I've never seen a team just play so much as a team, and especially like the NBA, it's so dominated by stars. It was so refreshing to see this team be so balanced, share the ball, the unselfishness. It was honestly just beautiful.
Giving up a good shot for a better shot.
Right.
Giving up a better shot for a perfect shot.
Yep.
That's what this team did.
So the Spurs would wrap up the regular season winning 62 games, got them the first seed out west, but we know the story. We've said it so many times. Western Conference in the mid-2010s, early 2010s.
Murderers Row.
Still to this day, yeah. Murderers Row. So they match up with the Dallas Mavericks team that won 49 games in the first round. And goddamn, this Mavericks team gave the Spurs everything they could handle. Game 1 was back and forth all night long. Tony Parker scored the first 7 points for the Spurs. They take a 29-12 lead after the first, but then the Mavericks battle back themselves. They went on a 12-0 run to start the second quarter. They retake the lead, and they'd carry a 1-point lead going to halftime, mostly thanks to Devin Harris giving them 13 points off the bench. Game stayed close and was tied after the third, but in the fourth, Dallas actually built up a 10-point lead. Looked like they were going to steal game 1 in San Antonio, but from there, the Spurs just take over. They go on a 15-0 run, and they'd eventually close things out 90-85 to go up 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, they go up 1-0, but I mean, the Mavericks proved in this series that they were not going to be a cakewalk. And in game 2, before the game, Pop gets the trophy for being coach of the year, but his team was not making him look good in that first half. I mean, 14 turnovers in the first half, 22 for the game, led to 33 points for the Mavericks. Mavericks built a lead as high as 15 in the second half after a Dirk 3. Spurs followed that up with a 10-0 run to make it a little bit interesting, but after that, I mean, Dallas completely takes control of the game. They win by 21 on the road, and I know Pop was fuming in that locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, like military background for Pop. He gets coach of the year. He's hot in that locker room.
Oh, absolutely. And because of that, they had a much better start in game 3. They led by 7 after the first, as much as 9 in the second, but the Mavericks respond. There were so many runs in this series. We'll talk about more. They go on a 19-7 run, gave them a 5-point lead at halftime. Things went back and forth in the third, but the Mavericks hung on to a 3-point lead, entering the fourth, and we get an all-time finish to this game. Fast forward, just under 4 minutes left. Kawhi hits a 3. He puts the Spurs up 3. Both teams go back and forth at the free throw line, but then Monte hits a big fading and one at the baseline to tie the game at 102 with 1:10 left. Both teams trade buckets, and then Boris Diaw hits a jumper to retake the lead for the Spurs with 29 seconds left. Monte Ellis, he was just so damn clutch this game though. He responds with a running hook shot to once again tie the game. And on the following possession, Manu responds back. He gets a layup on Samuel Dalembert to retake the lead. So you got a 2-point lead with 1.7 seconds left. You just need one more stop. But then Vince Carter just hits that huge corner 3, gets Manu in the air. And now the Mavs got a 2-1 lead going into game 4.
One tiny thing about that shot, I do remember after he hits it in the moment, the scorekeeper accidentally counts the 3 for the Spurs. And then the score goes final. So it's like final. Spurs 111, Mavericks 106. But I mean, Vince, even at this age, he wasn't half man, half amazing anymore, but he actually turned into like one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, weirdly enough. Like, it's how you age gracefully, Vince Carter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Game 4 was another close one though. The Mavericks started out really hot. They had a 12-2 lead early in the first quarter, but the Spurs battled back, so it was only a 5-point lead at the end of the first. Spurs dominated the second quarter though. They took a 14-point lead at halftime. They got that lead up to 20 early in the third quarter, but again, a series of runs. Mavericks followed that up with a 14-2 run, cuts the lead down to 8. They open the fourth on a 12-4 run, and all of a sudden we're tied at 77 with 6 minutes to go. Both teams go back and forth for the next 4 minutes until Tony Parker hits a mid-range shot to give the Spurs a 3-point lead with about a minute and a half left. But just like game 3, and Monte Ellis comes up clutch. He gets an and one, ties the game at 87 with 52 seconds left. On the following possession, Tony Parker kicks it to Boris Diaw, who nails a top of the key 3-pointer to give the Spurs lead. And this was a major problem with this Spurs team. Everyone on their team was seemingly unafraid of like the biggest moments.
Yeah.
Boris Diaw will hit clutch 3s. Tony Parker will do it. Danny Green, Patty Mills, who we'll get into. No one on this team was afraid of taking a big shot.
Yeah, I mean, that's coaching, and then they were just all veterans. Dirk gets a layup on the other end. He cuts the lead down to 1. So the Spurs get the ball into Manu. He gets fouled, but he misses the first and makes the second. I don't know what was up with Manu, but for some reason, he missed a lot of clutch free throws.
Yeah, going back, like doing the research for this, it happens like 4 times, 3 or 4 times.
Something like that. So the Mavs got 10 seconds left to either tie the game or potentially win it. Monte Ellis gets a handoff from Dirk. He drives in, but his layup just comes out, and the Spurs survive 93-89 to tie the series at 2-2. And then back in San Antonio for game 5, Spurs had a great start. They led 21-8 halfway through the first, but then the Mavs immediately followed it up with an 18-6 run. Like we talked about, these runs were ridiculous. So they cut the lead down to 1 at the end of the first. Second quarter though, Spurs respond with their own run, 9-3 run to take a 9-point lead going to halftime. And from there, the Spurs were able to hold on. The Mavericks got it close, got it as close to 4 points at one point, but the Spurs hold on to win 109-103 and take a 3-2 lead in the series.
Game 6 is going to be another close one, of course it does. Dallas got off to a good start in this one. They led by 6 at halftime, but the Spurs begin the third on an 11-4 run to take their first lead since early in the first quarter. They outscored the Mavericks 29-18 in the third quarter, had a 5-point lead going into the fourth, so just one more quarter, you need to close it out, but the Mavericks just would not go away. Monte Ellis gives you 12 fourth quarter points. Vince Carter chips in 8. It looked like the Mavericks basically had it wrapped up at this point, but then Patty Mills hits a 3 with 7 seconds left, cuts the lead down to 2, and then Monte Ellis, he's running away from Danny Green, trying to avoid the foul. I get that, but then he makes a really dumb decision of just like throwing the ball down the court. I mean, I kind of get the logic to it because the Spurs don't have any timeouts, so they would have to go the length of the floor. But at the same time, it's like, just go to the line and shoot your free throws.
Yeah, or throw the ball in the air. He throws it like directly down the court. So now the Spurs have a chance with 1.3 seconds left, down 2. They had 6 players on the court on this play.
Just completely get away with it.
Somehow doesn't get noticed, so they throw it all the way down. It gets knocked out of bounds with 0.4 seconds left. Somehow got away with that, so they got one more chance to win the game or tie it with 0.4 seconds left. Patty Mills gets a shot, but it comes up short, and the Mavericks escape to force game 7. And then the Spurs kind of just finally woke up, and they were like, okay, we're the better team, and they dominate Game 7. The Mavericks led for about a minute, but after that, it was just Spurs domination. Led by 12 after the first, 22 at halftime, eventually won 119-96. A wild first round series, a lot closer than the Spurs would have wanted.
Yeah, you think?
And they advanced to play the Blazers in the second round. And a lot of people after this series and after how the Blazers played against the Rockets in round 1 were actually picking the Blazers and giving them a good chance to win this series.
I mean, we were feeling ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
We were like, oh, old ass Spurs got pushed to the brink by the Mavericks. Yeah, we got a chance in this one, but this was kind of the end of an era for the Spurs and Mavericks. This is the 5th time they played each other in the playoffs since like Dirk and Duncan like took over as the stars for their team. And this was the last time that those two would face off in the playoffs. So kind of the end of an era, but going into the second round against the Blazers, game 1, Spurs dominated us. They started the game up 8-0. It was 13 after the first quarter. It was 26 at halftime, and it was 24 at the final buzzer. So Tony Parker led the way with 33, and 6 players scored double figures. And game 2 was basically the same as game 1, although it was a little bit closer at the beginning. R.C. Buford got his award for Executive of the Year. But I mean, early in the second quarter, Spurs went on an 18-1 run, took a 17-point lead. Blazers cut it down to 8 at one point in the fourth quarter, but Spurs win 114-97. This time, 7 players for San Antonio scoring double figures, and boy, they keyed in on LaMarcus because he was dog ass in this series.
Yeah, he was big time against the Rockets in round 1, but they shut him down. Credit to Tim Duncan, credit to Tiago Splitter. And game 3 wasn't much different. Blazers must win back in Portland, really needed this one. It was back and forth early, but then the Spurs go on a 16-5 run, take a 10-point lead. They extended to 20 at halftime. Blazers got it as close to 8, but Spurs retake control. They win 118-103, and they go up 3-0 in the series.
Literally the exact same thing that happened in game 2.
Literally, yeah.
Blazers get it down to 8 in the fourth quarter and then go on to lose by 15 plus.
Game 4, Blazers finally were able to get a win. Dame had a big game. He had that one dunk on Tim Duncan. Huge third quarter for the Blazers, pushed it up to 17, and they win 103-92 to avoid the sweep. But then in game 5, the Spurs just shut them down. They held the Blazers to 82 points on 40% shooting. Game was tied early on. It was 19 after the first, but then a big second quarter from the Spurs pushed it up to double digits. They eventually win 104-82, win the series in 5. A dominant series following up that kind of shaky game 1. They advance to the conference finals to take on the Thunder. A rematch of 2012. They're taking on MVP Kevin Durant this time. And big loss for the Thunder at the end of their series against the Clippers in round 2. Serge Ibaka had a calf injury, so he'd be out at least the first couple of games. And in game 1, the Spurs got off to a great start. Tony Parker, Duncan, and Kawhi combined for 18 their first 20. Overall, they start the game on a 29 run. Thunder fought back. They cut the lead down to 3 at the end of the first, but Spurs offense was clicking in the second quarter though. 37 points in the second quarter alone, and they shot 65% to extend the lead to 8 going to halftime. KD and Russ were big in the third quarter though, but then the Spurs followed that up with an 18-4 run, take an early double-digit lead in the fourth, and they closed it out 122-105 to go up 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, game 2 was also kind of close early on. Both teams went back and forth. OKC actually had the lead after the first quarter, but again, the Spurs and their runs. People like to talk about like the Warriors in their prime being able to go on runs. I mean, this Spurs team, 22-8 run in the second. Russ and KD both struggled big time, and Danny Green had 21 points on 7 3-pointers. All his points on threes. I mean,
only Danny Green.
Of course, yeah. Of course, only Danny Green. Russ and KD both struggled big time, and the Spurs win 112-77. I mean, me. But game 3, back in OKC, obvious must win for OKC. They get Serge Ibaka back. Wasn't at 100%, but he was still out there. Had 8 points in his first 5 minutes of the game, but Manu had 9 points off the bench, so the Spurs have a 1-point lead after the first. In the second quarter, it was the Manu and Russ duel. I mean, Manu had 12 points, Russ had 11. Both of them traded threes to end the half. But in the second half, though, it was Russ who was leading the Thunder. He had 14 second half points. Ibaka would unfortunately re-aggravate his calf injury and he'd have to leave early, but the Thunder still hold on. They win 106-97, get their first win in the series. And game 4 is the Russ and KD show. I mean, Russ gives you 40 points and 10 assists.
Damn.
And KD gives you 31. Spurs started this game up 8-0, but from then on, it was basically all Thunder. They win 105-92. So, I mean, at this point, we've had basically 3 blowouts in one game that was like kind of close. So at this point, didn't really know what to think of this series.
Yeah, every team had won their game at home. So back in game 5 in San Antonio, Spurs do a much better job of controlling KD and Russ. First quarter, quarter was back and forth. It was tied at 32 going to the second, but then the Spurs just dominate the second and third quarter. They pushed the lead up to 20 going to the fourth, and it was never close again. They won 117-89. Just another great example of team ball from the Spurs. OKC had the two best players in this series, but once again, 6 players scored double figures for San Antonio, and they did a great job of defending KD and Russ, like I mentioned. Game 6 was a lot. A potential closeout game for OKC. Tony Parker injures his ankle in warm-ups, but he'd still start the game, but
warm-ups.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, he's pretty old at this point. It was an old Spurs team, but just remember that later on. Russ had 10 first quarter points, Thunder lead 23-20 after the first. Kevin Durant and Reggie Jackson combined for 18 the second. They extend that lead 7 at halftime, but then from there, the Spurs slowly chipped away. They had a hot start in the third, went on a 14-4 run to end the quarter and took a 10-point lead going to fourth, so you just need to hold on for one more quarter, but a huge fourth quarter from Russ and KD helped lead a comeback. Russ had a steal late that cut the lead down to 2. Then a block from Serge Ibaka on Tim Duncan led to KD getting some free throws to tie the game at 97. Another block from Serge Ibaka, this time on Manu. It was clearly a goaltend, but they couldn't review it back then, so play went on. KD gets a layup as he gets around Danny Green. Manu follows that up with a huge 3 to give the Spurs a 1-point lead. KD then loses the ball and Manu gets the ball back, so he can extend the lead to 3 at the line, but
only problem is he doesn't.
Manu keeps missing these damn free throws, so they only have a 2-point lead. Russ makes both his free throws, and now we're going to overtime. And fast forward to OT. Spurs have a 1-point lead with 50 seconds left. Manu drives in. He's blocked by Serge Ibaka. This leads to a fast break. Reggie Jackson drops it off to Russ, but what a damn block from Kawhi.
Young Kawhi before his knees betrayed him. I mean, young Spurs Kawhi was special, man.
Yeah. Tim Duncan hits a post fade on the other end to put them up to 3, and then KD gets a great look to potentially tie the game.
He gets a perfect look. He gets wide open.
I don't know how he got that wide open. He misses it though. Spurs hold on 112-107, so they are back to the NBA Finals.
So the NBA Finals, obviously a rematch of the year prior where the Spurs lost in heartbreaking fashion. They're looking for their revenge. The Heat are looking to be the first team to three-peat since Shaq and Kobe did it with the Lakers. Spurs got home court advantage this time around, and they took a 6-point lead after the first thanks to Duncan and Ginobili combining for 17 in the first quarter. They'd carry that lead into halftime, leading by 5, but this is when the AC went out in early June in San Antonio, Texas. Must have been a sauna in that building.
Oh yeah, you could see the fans were waving themselves down. It was apparently 90 degrees on the court.
How does this happen?
I don't know.
How does the AC blow for an entire building that large?
That's inexcusable. He had a big third quarter though. Ray Allen had that one throwback dunk looking like Bucks Ray Allen out there.
I always love it when like an old head in the NBA just turns back the clock and just pulls out a dunk. Like, remember when Andre Miller did it?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that
out of fucking nowhere.
Anyways though, LeBron hits a late 3 in the third, puts the lead up to 6. Thiago Splitter gets a bucket, so the Heat now have a 4-point lead going to fourth. And early in the fourth, Chris Bosh hits an and 1 3, puts the lead up to 7 for the Heat. Looks like they're going to escape game 1 with the win, but then LeBron starts cramping and
everything goes to
yeah, and Skip Bayless apparently thought he should have played through it because, you know, you can just play through cramps, but we'll talk about that another video another time.
LeBron could, like, shatter his fibula and Skip would tell him to play through it.
Yep. LeBron, he'd come back in for 30 more seconds, but he was basically done for the night, and the Spurs take advantage. Danny Green, big fourth quarter. Tony Parker caps things off with a dagger, and the Spurs go up 1-0. Game 2, they got the AC fixed this time, and the Heat were much better. The Spurs actually had a better start. They led by 7 after the first, but LeBron was big this time. He had 11 second quarter points, helped tie the lead going to halftime, and then he dominated the third. 14 third quarter points. Heat going a 13-2 run, take a 5-point lead with 3.5 minutes to go in the quarter. Spurs respond back and take a 1-point lead going to fourth. And from there, the fourth quarter was back and forth. Tony Parker hits a big 3, but Chris Bosh responds with that huge corner 3, gives the Heat a 2-point lead. Dwayne Wade seals things, and the Heat tie the game 98-96, going back to Miami.
Yeah, we're back in Miami for game 3, and I mean, from this point on, this series was all San Antonio. I mean, they started game 3 on a 22-10 run, took a 16-point lead after the first, shot 87% in the first quarter. Half the league doesn't shoot that from the free throw line.
I mean, they had 71 points at the end of halftime, shooting 76% from the field, a finals record. I don't think anyone's ever going to beat that record. That's ridiculous. Heat make it close. They got it down to 10 the fourth, but
No chance.
Yeah, no chance. They win 111-92, and game 4 was basically the exact same game.
I was gonna ask a question because I was like the big Heat rider at the time, but like after game 3, I was like, okay, like that had to be a one-off. I mean, 87% in the first quarter, 75% in a half. Like, yeah, okay. I mean, the Heat won game 2 in San Antonio. Like, they got blown out in game 3. It happens. Game 4 was the exact same game as game 3.
Yeah, Spurs led by 26-17 after the first, built up a 19-point lead at halftime. Boris Diaw was just everywhere. Dude was making no look behind the back passes in the post, and their defense was just so damn dominant. The ball movement was there. They win 107-86. Now it's a closeout game back in San Antonio in game 5. I mean, LeBron did all he could. Heat start up 8-0. They led by, I think, like 15 or something early in the first, but I mean, Spurs just dominated from there. Manu, Kawhi, Duncan were huge in the second. They went on a 14-0 run, capped off by that Manu dunk on Chris Bosh.
Again, another old head turning back the clock.
Yeah. And then Patty Mills caught fire in the third, goes 5 for 5 in the quarter, 4 for 4 from 3.
Bro was in Olympic form.
Exactly. And from there, the game was over. They win 104-87 to seal their revenge. Just an incredible team, maybe the deepest team, like 1 through 12 in NBA history. And I really just wish this team got brought up more because they were so unselfish.
I mean, I think there's a fair argument to be made that this team plays like the best pure team basketball. I don't think they're the best team of all time. I think the 2017 Warriors are still a better team. I'm sure you can probably find other teams that are better. But if you are just looking for what is the best team basketball you can possibly watch, it's this team. I mean, everyone was so incredibly unselfish. They gave up good shots for better shots. They played defense. They played the right way. They're incredible to watch. And it terrifies me that they're trying to do it again.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Where do you rank this 2014 Spurs all time? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving a like. And hey, while you're here, check out some of our other content as well. Don't forget to subscribe. Synthetic Sports.